Do you have your drink in KitKats?
Oh, no, let me go get those. I don't have my drink or my drink, but let me go get both of those.
Oh, gosh. Is he going to be sauced by the end? Drat, he wasn't there to hear that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep. Yeah.
Had I got home any sooner, I would have made a hot toddy. Oh, well.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 68.
Everyone has things that they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
to join us on our hill to die on.
We have special guests today. Plural, special guests, plural. Let's introduce Scott. We have heard him before. He is one of our colleagues at our school. He's been on a few episodes already. We'd also like to welcome back Dan Moren. He came on episode 19 with the release of his third book, and now we're having him on for the release of his fourth book.
Oh, yes. Yes, episode 19. That was a long time ago by just doing the math here. 68 minus 19. That's a high number. I was told there would be no math.
You write science fiction. How can you not know math?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I have people for that.
Ah, of course, of course. So,
well, given that you recorded back in episode 19, I am amazed that you were willing to come back because we were still working out a lot of bugs back then. Not to say that we aren't still working out a lot of bugs.
That is the perennial curse of podcasting, is you're always working out some bugs. But I think if I could point to just one thing that got me to come back, it's probably the snacks.
I love it. I love it.
Bribery.
I like me some free snacks. Nothing wrong with that. So, yeah, here we are.
That's great. All right. Yeah. You got to keep them coming.
Did that haiku last long?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Still chewing that now. It's like I'm working on the same piece. You know, us writers, we're not exactly rolling in the dough most of the time. So if they're free food, you take it. That's just a no-brainer.
That's hilarious. Oh, that's so funny.
Again, I'm sorry for the 3 liters of Calpis, though.
You know, it's funny. I was in a local Asian grocery store the other day because my wife was going to try to make wonton soup. And I was just looking around, and I looked over at the beverage shelf behind the freezer shelf I was looking at, and they had bottles of it. And I was like, oh, that stuff. I don't think the other bottle of it survived our move. I want to say it was still unopened in the pantry, and we're like, maybe we don't have to move this.
Did you leave it there for the next people?
That's right, yes. It was a welcoming gift. You know when you go to like an Airbnb or something, and they leave you like a bottle of wine? Yeah, there you go.
I love it. What do you suppose this is? Cal piss. Oh.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah, right. It's either a drink or a solvent. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's both.
Could be both.
I did have Ryan drink Calpis ginger ale the other day for the podcast.
Oh.
That was a really good one.
Okay. Not good.
Because he hates ginger ale and he hates Calpis, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That is an over 2 right there.
Yeah.
There are some fun mixes here. There really are.
So we found all the good stuff and then sent it your way this time.
Yeah, exactly. There was a few stipulations in the package for you. Mm-hmm. It had to be less than 500 milliliters. I didn't want to pay for the weight. It had to be good.
Yep.
You had to find a good Kit Kat too. So yeah, there was a bunch of stipulations on the package.
Excellent. You got to have, some standards.
Right. You found a pretty normal Kit Kat. I mean, it isn't wasabi or shoyu or something.
No, although I did send him some other flavors.
Yes, which we did try. My wife and I did eat some of those, and they were pretty good, actually, I will say. Some of them are like, again, I like Kit Kats in general, and I know that Japan has a lot of good, like, weird flavor. Like that Kit Kat is like a medium, right? Like there's just all sorts of like flavors. So I'm always game to try some of them. And yeah, I mean, a few of them were better than others. I have to admit, I'm more of a fan of the chocolate, like the ones that are like there was, I think, a cocoa one or something like that, like a.
Oh yeah, the high.
Yeah,
one,
that probably one for me because that's I'm a chocolate guy. That's what I'm looking for. So I like that one, and then I think the chestnut one is just odd, right? Because chestnut is not a flavor that you get really in the U.S. very much. I mean, it's around, but it's not something used to flavor other things, really. So that was interesting. Yeah, I was mostly positive on them. So
I've always wondered about that because, we've got that song, Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, but yet not many Americans know what chestnuts taste like.
Yeah, I think they used to be more of a thing. Like, I want to say back in like the 50s or something, like, or maybe even earlier than that, 19th century. Like, they were like a thing you would buy like from a street vendor or something like that. In the same way that you might buy like pretzels or something nowadays. But not as many street vendors, at least outside of like New York. And I just think chestnuts probably ended up being a thing that was not as interesting as pretzels or hot dogs or whatever. It's the downfall of American palates, I suppose.
Yeah.
My wife's family being Korean, they eat the roasted chestnuts. So I've had some of it there, but I don't remember it being quite as cinnamony flavor as those KitKats were.
I mean, that being said, I walked to the grocery store this morning and they were selling roasted chestnuts right out the front door.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Like on the Yakimo things?
Oh, great. Oh, okay. It's interesting that you say that you tasted cinnamon in those chestnut KitKats because I did the same thing. I tasted the same thing. I have a list of I think I'm up to like 85 different flavors now.
Wow.
And
that's right. You've done it.
I started when I got here. And it's like, wow, all these cool flavors. I'm just going to keep a list of them. I remember tasting cinnamon in the chestnut. It's like, oh, what is this? I don't know if they added it or if it was just...
I don't know.
It has a synergy between those flavors, like cinnamon and chestnut. I feel like there's a earthy spiciness or something, or an earthiness. I don't know. Maybe they're a similar sort of flavor palette.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Similar to the way that when you're buying coffee beans, they relate them to like, oh, this one has notes of cocoa, or this one has a fruity kind of flavor.
Yeah, or like a mapley or a syrup or something like that has a flavor. Yeah, I totally like tasting note type thing. Yeah, so and then there's just flavors that work well together. So maybe it is also a case of just like we put those together because they go well together.
Well, so on the day I was sending you this package, I came back from vacation because in Japan, everything shuts down on January 1, 2, and 3. It's a big holiday here in Japan. We went off on vacation, and I came back to mail you the package, and I have a postcard in my mailbox. And I was like, oh, look, I got a postcard because my birthday was coming up. And I take a look at the postcard, and it has another postcard taped to it from the post office saying, this postcard didn't arrive with enough money on the stamp to pay for it, so you have to go to the post office and pay for more stamps. And I take a look at the post office, and it's Scott's birthday card to me. So I was like, oh, it's fine. I'm going to the post office anyway.
To mail the package.
To mail Dan's package. So I'll just bring this postcard with me and handle whatever problem. Because I didn't read all the postcard either. I was like, it's a lot of Japanese. I will figure it out when I get to the post office. Had to pay 21 more yen. So then
this is not where the story ends.
so then I was like, I should tell Scott because he's probably got a collection of these postcards that he's mailing off, and he should know that I'm fine paying 21 yen. I happen to be going to the post office anyway. So I say, Scott, you know these postcards are not regulation size. You got to put more postage.
And
on
I
them.
didn't know.
Because you got them somewhere else, right? You said you got them somewhere.
Yeah, it's interesting.
In Europe?
Yeah, they are Totoro postcards printed in America, but I bought them in Wales. So, I mean, I bought them because
international postcards.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that was good. So I bought them because one, I love Totoro, and second, I live in Japan and they're printed in the U.S. and I'm in Wales and I bought them. They were there for sale, and I was like, "Well, this is crazy. I got to get these." So that's what I got them, and so I started sending them. But I've sent all of them, but Nate's. And the next one, internationally. And the international postcard dimensions are different. They're within those dimensions for international postcards, but not domestic.
Not domestic.
Right, right, Ryan?
Yeah. So after all of this goes on and he finds out about the 21 yen thing, Nate says, hey, Ryan's birthday also just happened. You should send one to him and put the same postage on it. So I still haven't gone to the post office to pay my 21 yen.
21 yen is like 10 cents.
I looked it up because I was curious. It looked like it was 15, 16
like
cents.
15 cents, yeah.
Are you trying to like help the post office a little bit by like, are you collecting for the post office? Is that what's happening here?
I think he gets a kickback.
I do.
I don't want to know what the kickback percentage on 15 cents is.
It's like 1 yen. But
that's a high percent.
The interesting thing to me is that they still delivered the postcard, even though there's postage due on it. I mean, all right, a Japanese wouldn't do this. Maybe I'm getting culturally insensitive here, but an American would say, I'm not going to the post office to take 15 cents. I've got my postcard. Too bad.
Yeah. Right. I was gonna say, how do they enforce that? Right.
Yeah, right. That's what
I
my
guess
thought was,
technically
too.
they know where you live.
Well, that's true. They could stop the rest of your
they can
mail.
track
They
me
could
down.
stop the rest of your mail.
That would be effective. That would be fair. But I also feel like in the U.S., if you sent somebody a card with not enough postage on it, the post office kicks it back to you. It's like, we're not delivering this.
That's
which
true.
is weird.
Exactly. Yeah, they sent it
Which
back.
is weird because when you think about it, it really just makes more work for them. They got to take it back.
And then they have to deliver it again, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like gums up all the works, right?
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. But the funny thing is, too, there's no return address on a postcard, right? So they didn't know where to send it back. Because I have got postage back, like letters in envelopes saying you need to put more postage on this before we deliver it. But a postcard, they can't do that to. So that's why they forward it on. You would think that they would just send the postage due card. You've got mail. Right? And say, come to the post office and pay your 21 yen and we'll give you this postcard.
They would hold it hostage. Right.
Exactly. Hostage. That's good.
That would make more sense.
Nice postcard you've got here.
Yes.
Shame if something were to happen to it.
We'll send you a picture of the front of it.
There we go. Right. Exactly. I don't even know if I want this postcard.
But just a tent.
Just dangling over the shredder.
That's
right. Hands tied behind its back, dangling over the shredder.
Yes. That's hilarious.
So yes, when Nate sent you the notes of what he wanted to talk about and that postcard, that's why. Because Scott did us wrong.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it needs to be aired on a podcast.
Seriously.
Someone needs to be held accountable.
Well, yeah, right. For the second time. The first time was totally innocent. There's a halo above my head. Now it's held up by two horns. But, that was the second time. The horns came from the second time.
Mm-hmm.
We don't often get to make our podcast a tech podcast because we're normally not timely enough for that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Have you been able to purchase yourself a Mac Mini yet? Has that happened?
I have not.
Ooh.
Okay.
I have not yet purchased one. There's a few reasons for this. Most of it is because I just haven't figured out what configuration I want to buy yet. So I'm kind of like being a little lazy about it and trying to look at once the reviews start to come out and stuff like that, and I can actually look at the numbers and sort of figure out, well, where's the best bang for my buck? Because I think that's the thing that's holding me back. Because I'll almost certainly be buying a M2 Pro Mac Mini of some flavor, but trying to balance all my little RAM configuration and storage configuration, and do I spring for the extra processing cores? I'm just sort of trying to figure out where's my value in there. So I've sort of held off. I've been using my MacBook Air connected to my studio display, and that's been fine for most things. So, the main thing I've lost there is the ability to carry my MacBook around with me, because I can unplug it, whatever. It's just a pain to disconnect everything and take it with me if I need to go do something elsewhere in the house or elsewhere in the world. Not that I leave my house that much, but yeah, I'm going to buy one. It's on the docket, and some of it's like just budgeting too, right? It's like figuring out okay, how much is it going to cost? Do I have to set aside some money for my business and figure out what I can actually afford? And it's coming, but we'll see what this coming week as we record this is when the reviews for all these things come out. So I'm sure by the time this episode airs, I will have purchased one. So sorry, no news to break.
Wow, that's too bad. Well, I kind of agree with you. I've been looking at one for our FileMaker server here on campus, and I can't... It would be nice to see what the difference between the M2 and the M2 Pro is, especially in single core. Yeah. Because I don't think the FileMaker server uses multi-core. At least I haven't found documentation on that. So, I guess it would benefit in other ways.
Yeah, I could tell, just based on the existing stuff, even with the M1, I think the thing with those ends up being the cores are kind of the same. It's how many do you have? Right. And but the benchmarks, I think even in the M1 level were pretty close for single core performance, because most of the extra stuff is ancillary to that. Do you have more cores? Do you have a better video processing pipeline? That kind of thing. So
yeah, I think I might end up with an M2 base model again too. We did end up buying an M1 base model,
which is fine. It's respectable.
Yeah, because we went with the M1 base model instead of the Studio the last time we purchased. So I think probably just M2.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, very nice computers.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to get... I had an iMac that was Intel-based, and it died last summer. And so I've been looking to replace that. And it would be nice to have another Apple Silicon machine in the house and something with a little more oomph than the M1.
Yeah, it'll be nice. Yeah, the new MacBook Pros are nice too. I think we'll probably get a few staff buying them this year, so I'm pretty excited about having them around. Yeah, it's a good time. I don't think the Airs will come out before our purchase cycle, though, which is too bad. Oh, well. M2s are nice.
Are we allowed to get desktops?
You could. I think you'd have to convince me that you can still get the work done during the meetings and stuff. But I think you probably could because you still have a few laptops around that you could do stuff with. So I think you probably can.
It is awkward to bring your mini to a meeting, set up your display, bring a keyboard. It's just, I don't know, it's a little awkward.
You know this from experience.
Oh yeah, you know what? Years ago, I remember seeing. I was working. I do a lot of my writing in coffee shops, or at least used to pre-pandemic. And I looked over one day and saw somebody had brought in an iMac into the coffee shop, and I was like, "What?
Oh no, that's hilarious."
I mean, like, okay, I guess that's the computer you got. That's the computer you got. But still, that just seems like a pain.
Wow, that's what you used to do when you had your Mac classes.
That's right.
128K.
Yeah, you throw it in the little backpack thingy, and off you go.
Yeah, I never really did that.
I can't imagine doing that at a coffee shop.
It seems awkward. I mean, right? It was hard enough always to find a plug as it was if you were like running on battery power, and it's like, I mean, either you brought a hell of an inverter and a battery to connect it to, or you're like, oh, you got to get there early. Find a seat near the plug.
I think the social anxiety of bringing that in and like trying to explain this to the coffee shop employees.
Right.
No.
But what color was it?
I'd have to look. I want to say it was. Well, this was not a G. It was a early Intel ones. I think it was
Earlier
a big
ones.
the white flat screen ones.
Oh yeah. I used to have those.
They were heavy computers too. My parents had one, and I would like open it up every once in a while. It was one of the ones you could actually take the back off, and like, man, it was not light.
Yep, I had my G5 20-inch iMac. Loved it. Oh. In Japan, it raised my electricity bill $20 a month by having that thing on all the time. That was a thing I tracked.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man. Okay, I can shut it off while I'm asleep now. I know I can shut it off. I don't need to pay for that.
So Dan, I know your life has been probably super busy, but have you gotten any chance to play any new games lately?
I actually have. For my birthday last year, which was about 3 months before my kid was born, my wife, after I like repeatedly dropped hints about it, my wife got me a PS5, which was very nice because I had never had a PlayStation before. I'd mainly been an Xbox guy. I have a Switch, but I never owned a PS3 or a PS4, none of that. And so for years, there have been like games collecting that you could only like PlayStation exclusives. I was like, I want to play those games, but I don't have a console to play them. So I went back through the catalog and played a bunch of stuff that I'd missed. I played the entire Uncharted series, which I really enjoyed. I played both the Spider-Man games, which are great, super fun. I started playing but have not finished Stray, the game where you're a cat, which I keep meaning to get back to.
What?
Don't worry, that's actually the one that I'm going to talk about because I just beat it last weekend. No spoilers.
All right, I've probably put a couple hours into it, but recently I have been playing, and perhaps this is appropriate for this podcast, Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh no.
So I've logged a lot of hours in that. Now that the kid sleeps a little better, like, you know, when we finish dinner and stuff, I'll maybe play for an hour or something like that. But that is a very big game. I enjoy it, but it has got AAA title disease, which is like, you know, if you've played an Assassin's Creed game in the last several years, it's like running around collecting a lot of stuff on a giant map with quests that, you know, while fun, eventually get kind of repetitive.
And then they added the DLC.
I know. I think I just found the entry point to that yesterday when I was playing, and I was like, well, I don't have time to go to another island. I'm still working on this island. Like, I'm going to go fight those guys. But, you know, the PS5 is a great-looking machine, and the graphics, especially for that game, are really fantastic. So I've been playing that a bunch and really enjoying it. And it's just, you know, again, it's a game that, because it's so long and involved, it is one of those things where it's like, I can sink an hour into this just as like a mindless exercise, and it's not a problem. But I think my highest rated game on the PS5 would probably be the Marvel Spider-Man, which I really love Spider-Man, and that game is so much fun and really legitimately makes you feel like Spider-Man, and that is not nothing. That's a big mark in its favor.
Mm-hmm. And I'm personally really looking forward to the number 2 coming out soon.
Yes, I think this fall, I want to say, they've said.
Yeah. As I just hinted at, the game that I just finished this past weekend was Stray, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And for the other 2 who haven't played it, it is a wonderful game. The main premise is you are a cat and have fallen into a mysterious city populated by, I don't know how far you've gotten, so
Yeah, you could say I've gotten that far.
Is populated by robots, and you're just trying to get out and reunite with your cat family. And I am going to say it is marketed on how adorable these cats are, and it does it well.
Yeah, it's true.
I am a grown man sitting in my apartment alone going, oh, look at the pretty kitty.
Does it make you want to watch cat YouTube videos, kitty YouTube videos?
I think the people who made it probably made the game having watched all the cat YouTube videos.
That's some good cat animation, I gotta say. It's some quality, like, yeah, that seems like what a cat would do.
Yeah. And like when you, for example, lay down, it will purr through your controller.
Yes.
It vibrates your controller.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
No way. That's cool.
Yeah, the PS5 controller haptics are bananas. Like, I love the work with the little speaker on them and everything. Like, they do some solid work with that.
Does it? Okay, so if the cat gets scared or mad, does the controller scratch you?
That's next level. That's when you get the PSVR.
Okay.
But yeah, no, the haptics on the controller are fantastic. If you haven't played it yet, Returnal.
I've heard of it, but I haven't played it.
It is a, how to describe this, 3D bullet hell roguelike game.
Okay.
Wow.
That is the best way I can describe it. It has a really good storyline, but one of the things about the controller for that is every gun in the game has a secondary fire option. And so depending on how far down you pull the trigger, it will actually do one of the two firing options. But it's a really fun game, but it is unfortunately one of those games that your attention cannot go away from that screen. So with small children in the household, probably not.
Yes, that is definitely a bit more challenging. I was going to say on the haptic side, as one of the things I was noting, I was playing PlayStation's app for both the Mac and iPad, I think, is pretty good and lets you actually play games like streamed from your console. So I was using it on my Mac the other day, and I was like, I'm surprised how good it was, but the one thing you miss is it doesn't send the haptics. So I was like, when in Ghost of Tsushima, when you're like riding your horse, you get like the little galloping, and what I think is clever about it is like it changes depending on like what you're riding on. Like you go over a bridge, like a wooden bridge, and it like changes the feel and sound of it because it's like deeper and like harder than like say riding over dirt.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's wild. Riding around on my horse in like this version is like, oh, I don't get any of it. Like the controller doesn't even really. It doesn't. I guess it just doesn't send that information over the remote stream, which is a bummer.
So even if you're using your PS5 controller on the Mac, you don't get
Which I was. Yeah, I was using a DualSense controller on the Mac, and it just it can do haptics. I just think that the remote play thing doesn't transmit that information. Yeah.
doesn't send it along.
Yeah.
No. I don't know if you've done this, but Astrobot comes installed on the PS5.
Yes.
Which it's basically a tech demo for the controller.
Right.
But it is better than it has any right to be.
People say that. I've played some of it. I haven't played all of it. I started playing it when I first got the PS5 because it was already there, but I haven't gone through the whole thing. But yeah, I clearly feel set up because it's like the controller has a mic on it, right? And you can like blow in it. And I mean, I feel like that was the thing on the DS? Like one of the Nintendo portables had that as a as a feature, which was always odd. But yeah, it's a really nice controller, which also explains why they're like $70 usually.
Yeah.
So much stuff in there.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that you're getting into all those that you missed so long ago. Just hearing that you got to play like the Uncharted series and all those is just great.
Uncharted I really enjoyed because I enjoy that style of game. It's got a very, obviously like Indiana Jones-y flavor to it. But I think what was refreshing to it, especially playing back through the early ones, which are, I don't even know how old. They're over a decade old, right? Like,
I want to say early PS3.
Yeah, they're pleasingly small games too, which is nice. Like, they're not games with endless skill trees or endless like things to find. Like they're very digestible, and it's a good story. And like even if it is a little bit on rails at times, it's fine because it's so fun that it doesn't really matter. But I just really enjoyed not having to think about like honestly like, oh, I got more points, I got to get new skills or whatever. It's like, nope, just run around and fight some bad guys, find some stuff, climb up some things, and then enjoy some cutscenes with some decently written dialogue. We actually even went and then watched the Uncharted movie, which is maybe don't do that if you like good games.
Yeah.
Didn't translate well, huh?
Nah. I like Tom Holland. He is very charming. I don't think he was the problem with that movie. There is, I will say, it is worth it if for nothing else. There is a cameo at one point from Nolan North, who voices Nathan Drake in the video games, and that is probably one of the funniest moments in the entire thing. But it's also a joke that like a very small percentage of the audience is going to get.
So this book is, again, another spy thriller in Dan Moren's series. So we figured this time we would pick our favorite spy gadgets. This book doesn't really focus on spy gadgets, but it's a spy kind of thing, right? I mean, actually, these guys do good with what they have on hand, really. Yeah. But still, we'll do spy gadgets this time because there's a bunch of good things in that genre to pick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There are so many spy gadgets is the thing. Like, do you count, like, could I just pick the Aston Martin from, like, the James Bond?
I think you
Absolutely.
could.
Yep. I think that's free game.
That's an amazing spy, because I thought James Bond, right? Like, you know, I considered some other options of like, the Get Smart shoe phone. I don't think that's as impressive as it used to be. We all have phones that would easily fit in a shoe. I think for me, the Aston Martin DB5 from Goldfinger back in the day, that is a fantastic car, but also it was just loaded with bulletproof shield, and it had machine guns in the headlights, and it had smoke screens and oil slicks, and it's just like one of the fun, great all-time like chase sequences, like flipping all the switches and deploying all the countermeasures. And it's a great looking car to boot, right? Like, I think you put that in there, it's hard not to argue that that is just one of the best spy gadgets of all time. And I mean, the reason, of course, that they later then brought it back in Skyfall, which, you know, come on, you got to admit it's a classic.
In silver.
Yes, indeed. I even like the color.
No, can't argue with that.
Mm-hmm. Good pick. Good pick.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I did pick the Get Smart shoe phone.
It's respect.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, so Dan, you said, yeah, we've all got phone devices now that will fit in our shoe, but the Get Smart shoe phone had the interface on the bottom of the shoe. Now that is something, right?
That's fair.
It's something.
I mean, you got to think about it. How long does that shoe last? It wears down. The sole wears down. Does he get a new shoe? Do they just resole it? I don't know, but all of that, the interface is on the bottom of the shoe. It's perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Cannot be improved upon. It's a reason we're all using shoe phones.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Plus, putting an iPhone in your shoe would be uncomfortable, right?
That's true. The touch screen gets all grody. Yeah.
Toe jam and all that stuff. Ugh. I'm impressed by it.
I'm going to choose a rather broad description of things rather than a specific one because I'm cheating. But I want to choose oddly shaped explosives because I love explosions. Full stop. But in all the spy movies, I love the sequence where everything's gone a little bit awry, shall I say. And it all kicks off where they'll need a pen that's a bomb, or a watch that's a bomb, or a rubber ducky that's a bomb. And I just love all of the really randomly shaped explosives that they use in who knows what ways. And part of the reason why I love that is also thinking about the fact that if they've made all these explosives in these various forms, I just worry about all of the poor techs who go to pick up their pen or grab the wrong clipboard and suddenly they're in pieces or they're not quite whole anymore. So
it's a risk.
It's a risk. But I personally love in all of the old spy movies, and I say old, new ones too, but where there are explosives just shaped like who knows what. And that carries over into other mediums too.
You make me think of that scene it's one of the Mission Impossible where the big fish tank gets blown to bits. Was that?
Yeah, the first
yes,
one.
That's the gum, right. It was gum. I couldn't remember if it was gum.
Red light, green light.
Gum or putty. Right. It was gum.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Don't chew that gum.
Don't chew that gum.
That's the thing, is it's like it's gum or it's Yeah, every movie has a different way of storing their explosives, but everybody's got the explosives because they're necessary.
Gets the job done.
Gets the movie sold.
Like I said, I love an explosion.
Well, that's why I was going to pick shooting with the cork like Bashir.
What?
No, I'll pick something else. But that was one of the things I was thinking. It's like, wait a minute, Star Trek's done spies.
That's right.
Bashir shoots with a
That's
cork.
right.
It's a good episode.
But yes, it was a good episode. No, and I was thinking about Lipstick Taser too, but that's because I have kids and watch Despicable Me a lot. But because you have to announce your weapons before you use them in Despicable Me. Anyway, and I liked the shoe phone too, but I'm going to go with the wrist communicator that Maxwell Smart uses, which is basically a watch. I mean, you could also think the Dick Tracy watch, although I guess Dick Tracy wasn't really a spy. More of a detective, I guess, right? But I mean, I loved that version of the future. And then one day I realized that I was taking calls on my Apple Watch already, and I was like, wait a minute, we've reached the future. How did this happen? Yeah, so I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm very glad, though, that we don't have the retractable headphones that Maxwell Smart did. We moved beyond those, because that was a nice technological advance with the AirPods.
Yeah.
But I do like Get Smart. I didn't pick the Cone of Silence.
I was going to say, where's our cone of silence? We don't have one of those.
Yeah, I was debating. That was my B choice, the cone of silence. Actually, the baffles in your books are basically the cone of silence, right? Same purpose.
That's true. Yeah.
Lots of good spy gadgets out there.
I almost picked the other backup would have been the James Bond, the laser watch. That's also a solid one, which I want to say is from, is that GoldenEye?
That's in several ones, if I remember right. I think GoldenEye had the laser watch. Because I remember, if nothing else, playing the Nintendo 64.
Yes, GoldenEye, yeah.
Yes.
The watch did all sorts of stuff in that one, because you could use it to set off explosives and all sorts of stuff. It looks like, I'm looking at it again. It says, first scene, Never Say Never Again, which is that's the off-brand one, I believe. That's the off-brand Sean Connery. It's the one where he had retired. He had retired, but he came back.
Right.
And it's not owned. It's basically a remake of Thunderball, but it apparently, I guess, also appeared in GoldenEye and Die Another Day. That was a bad one. Don't.
I'm trying to remember all of them.
That's the last Brosnan, and it's not very good.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we've had a few of these Fanta Premier drinks before.
Fanta Premier Grape.
Grape, yep. There was a ginger ale one. I don't think we had it on the podcast, right?
Yeah, because you remembered my reaction from the first ginger ale.
Yeah.
Oh, the spicy one?
So to clarify, to defend my name,
Dear.
I need to defend my name once in a while here.
No.
I am not a fan of spicy ginger ales. And so they thought in their ultimate wisdom that they were going to bring the extra spicy ginger ale, and it burned. It burned.
That's really good.
That is somebody's opinion.
Well, did I get you guys those?
Yes,
I believe you
I
did.
think I saw from Seijoishi.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so we have Fanta Premier Pear, which I don't think it's the same. In Japan, they have something called nashi, which is a brand of pear. Was that what you call it? What's it called? A breed of pear?
A type?
A type.
A subset?
A version?
A version of a pear. What's funny is because they're shaped like apples, and they look like apples. They look like Bumpy Granny Smith apples. Like they're rough on the outside. They're not really smooth. Pears aren't quite smooth.
Like a pear?
Yeah, like a pear isn't. But they're apple-shaped, so they look confusingly like apples, but they're nashi. So I don't think this is that, though. I think this is, well, the picture shows an American-shaped pear.
That's a Danju pear on the cover.
Oh, okay. It doesn't say nashi on the kanji either. I think that's different.
Just says pear.
Over by the barcode there, it says 16% fruit juice. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
We're getting more and more healthy with our drinks.
Healthy.
I was going to ask if this was juice or soda. I assume soda based on the Fanta.
Yes. It will be carbonated.
It's carbonated, yeah.
Okay.
And I really hope yours isn't shaken up too much. Sorry.
Well, we'll find out when it explodes all over me in my office.
Sorry. Open very slowly, please.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's see. What does it
All
say?
right.
There we
What
go.
does it smell like?
That is
Smells like a pear.
a very strong.
Whoa.
Yeah, very strong smell. Huh?
That's that 16% juice.
Yeah, but it's the 84% of other stuff that I'm afraid of.
It's 84% sugar. I
Yeah,
don't know.
right.
You know, we recently gave my kid pears, like puree, for the first time. And I wouldn't say it was like a total hit, but it was also not the worst thing. that we've given. So I'm not usually a pear person myself. I've eaten, a pear oddly, occasionally in the past, but I don't seek them out. So I was a little curious when I was like, well, I don't know. Is this going to be something that appeals to me? And I don't know about yours. Mine is, I think, if anything, probably a little low on the carbonation side. Possible just because transit, etc. But there's still some fizz in there, but it's not like strongly fizzed.
No, mine's not either. No.
I think that's pretty standard for this one.
It's got a little bit of carbonation bite at the back.
It's almost like they added soda water to some pear juice.
Yeah, right. It's not bad.
Not bad. It's not bad.
No, it's not. I do think it does taste more American pear than nashi, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would drink it again, but I mean, I probably wouldn't actively seek this one out.
I like it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it?
Oh, gosh. He also doesn't let you have decimals just to warn you.
Okay, all right. That's good. I have myself run into that problem in the past.
We do kind of grade 5 as average.
Yeah, my first inclination, which I'll go with, was a 6, which is like slightly above average, I would say. Again, not necessarily like a thing I would run around to try and find more of, but like, I don't hate it. It's not Calpis.
Oh, the truth comes out.
Oh, good. Better than Calpis.
Yes, better than Calpis. There's your...
A lot less of it, too, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I'll have to save some for my wife because she'll probably want to try it.
I was thinking 7. I do kind of like it. It's not going to be a favorite, but I do kind of like it.
Yeah, I was thinking 7 too, and I'm a pear guy. I like pears. Oh, and I need to offer correction here. It is not a Danjou, it's a Bartlett.
Oh, Bartlett pear. Okay.
Yeah, the Bartletts. The Danjou are the brown ones that are kind of more elongated. The more squatty green ones are Bartletts.
I think I'm with Dan on this one. I think it's a 6.
Okay.
Solid mid-range. I feel like everyone's kind of clustered in the same area there.
It's nice.
Yeah, it is good. Actually, these KitKats my wife found for me, which is always good.
Why is that?
She's like, Nate, I'm encouraging you again. I bought you more KitKats.
Okay.
That kind of encouragement. Oh, good. You're okay with this then, right? This podcasting thing? Well, what does the gato chocolat mean, Scott? What does that mean?
It's French for chocolate cake.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Gato chocolat.
Oh, so it's translated into French and then into Japanese?
Yes. So, well, gato.
All right. Because I speak French, and it's like, well, I could have, if it said that on there, I think I would have noticed.
Yeah, no, it doesn't say it anywhere in the alphabet. Yeah, there's nowhere.
No, it says it in the Japanese has a character set for foreign language words.
Right. Okay.
So on the label, right under the bow, there's 4 little letters.
Yeah.
That part means strawberry. And then the next line of like very strokey letters is the foreign language one, and that says the gato chocolat. So
interesting. Okay. So this makes me wonder, is like strawberry cake, is that a French thing?
I don't know if they put strawberries on chocolate cake, but...
Oh, Nate, did you notice the little thing at the bottom?
I did not notice that. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Sorry, I have to warn you. There is 0.09% alcohol in this. I did not see that earlier. And I sent that overseas. Oops. Oh well.
I've got that more in me right now, so it's okay.
Now I'm excited to try this.
I did not see that before.
Happy Sunday morning to me.
Oh yeah, it says do not give to your children.
Okay, good to know.
Does it say that? Oh, it does.
Yeah, it does. It says that. Please don't give it to children.
Okay. My kid doesn't have enough teeth anyway.
0.09%. They're worried about 0.09%.
Yes, they are.
Well, I guess if you eat a lot of it,
Well, I suppose.
a lot of it.
That is interesting. I don't even know what to make of this.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah, it's not bad. If you gave this to me blind and were like, what flavor is this?
Yeah.
Would I come up with strawberry? Like, I get a little bit of it knowing it. Like, if I'm going looking for it,
Yeah.
I can get it. It's not so strawberry forward that I would immediately think, oh, that's a strawberry cake.
But the chocolate cake is, what's more there, but not.
I'm getting more strawberry on the finish.
Yeah.
I think the chocolate tastes a little bit richer than a normal Kit Kat does, though.
It's got a fudginess to it or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yep.
Maybe it's now we've just said that there's a boozy, but I feel like there's a slight boozy to it. Quality to it. Again, maybe that may be my suggestibleness, but
That's the French part.
yeah, that makes sense. Finally, okay, yeah, that's a good like a strawberry liqueur torte or something.
I think you know what? I think the strawberry's in the cookie. I don't think the strawberry's in the chocolate.
There's That makes sense. That's pretty good, though.
Yeah.
I will say that the alcohol in it is nowhere near the level of the ones in like the sake KitKats.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
You haven't seen those?
No.
Oh, man, I have to find that because my wife actually got me for Christmas like a tasting collection of sake.
Ooh, nice.
We just had one last night that was very good. I won't be able to remember what it is, but it
It was very good.
I enjoyed it. We've gone out a couple times to like a fancy, dinner or something. And one of the places near us that does a really nice like multi-course dinner does drink pairings. And they, have wine and beer and non-alcoholic pairings, but they also do a sake pairing, which I've gotten a couple times when we've gone there. And it convinced me firmly that I really like sake. It's such a good mix of stuff because, again, like they're pairing it with food, right? So they think very carefully about the different styles and the different things and what goes well with things. And overall, they do a great job of picking stuff out. And I don't know anything about it other than what I'm slowly learning. But sake KitKats sound intriguing, so I'll have to see if I can find those.
I will say that we unfortunately did not think about the pairing when we were
No.
giving you the...
Do the strawberry cake and pear pairing? I don't know. It's not terrible.
I'm sure we could have thought of things that worked better together.
Well, maybe, but I would say it's not bad. It's not like a totally jarring combination.
True.
How did you like these? I think these are pretty good.
I put those up there. I think I give those maybe an 8.
Yeah, I was thinking 8 as well.
I'm right there with you.
Sounds good to me. I'll go with it.
Apparently, we all taste about the same. I didn't know how else to phrase that halfway through that sentence. Similar
tastes.
Similar tastes.
Yeah, these are some of the better ones I think that we have.
Yeah. I'll save one for my wife again because I think she will like this. We tasted the other ones, and I feel like if I don't save one, I will be in trouble.
Well, after a few more times, if we find Kiwi Mikachu, we can send that to you too. That's the one that rated the lowest for us ever.
Oh, good.
Sorry. But, we should send you a few more good ones before that. But
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, don't start out sending me the worst one on the list.
Here, honey, try this.
We hated this. You'll
love it. You've done it, right? Like everyone's you take like a sip of something, you're like, this is terrible, try this, right? Or like, is this milk bad?
Oh.
Taste this. And you're like, why? Why would I do that?
Yes. My mother does that to my dad all the time. This milk smells bad. Taste it. I'm like, why are you throw it out?
You taste it. I'm not tasting it.
there are some really good drinks. In fact, one of the things we were talking about is there's so many drinks in Japan that we've purchased. I think we have like 4 drinks lined up for future podcasts that I think we're going to have to start making member episodes of just drinks because they're building up too fast and we can't drink them fast enough, or we don't record often enough to get through them.
Well, when we record once every other week and we find 2 drinks a week.
Yeah, basically, that's the problem.
That's the problem. You could do 2 drinks on an episode, yeah.
Yeah, we could probably. I don't know if I can put that much soda in Ryan.
That's true. That's true. Fair point.
I think it's time for us to get to the main reason we're all here today.
It wasn't KitKats?
Well, for some of us.
Yeah. Sure, that's true. I got to go, guys. All right, that was great. See you later.
Well, we read the Nova incident last year. In fact, on our last podcast, we did our year wrap-up podcast, which we're going to air this one before the year wrap-up podcast. Oh, well, we'll have that went out of order. So, oh, well. But I had picked the Nova incident as my favorite book read last year. And Ryan agreed with me, but because I sniped his, he picked another one also. But he agreed with me. So we're like, oh, well, let's just talk about it next episode. And we got Scott, because he read it along with us at the same time. Because Scott keeps texting me back and forth as he was reading it. Did you get that part with Paige? Anyway, well, he didn't say it like that because he didn't give it away.
No, I didn't want to do any spoilers. No.
No. So we wanted to talk about Nova Incident because it was very exciting. And then we asked Dan if he would come along with us, and he said yes. We dragged him along to another recording. That was very nice.
I just got to read the book, so.
You remember where you were, how it all went? On my vacation in January, I did read through all 4 of them again, too, just to make sure I was all caught up. That was
nice.
That was kind of fun.
I did, too.
Yeah, every once in a while, I'm tempted to do the same thing because I remember all the stuff that's in, like, okay, what little details did I plant early on that I need to get back to? Because I realize as I get older, I forget things.
Well, that's where our speculation corner is going to come in later. That's for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
So yes, if you haven't read Nova Incident, please go read it. Please read all the other 3 books in front of it too. They are all very good. Please do that and then come back and join us. For those that have read it and just want to be reminded of what they read in hopefully last year,
Well, not just that, maybe an elevator pitch for those who haven't read it either, to kind of invite them to come along.
Yeah, sure. The elevator pitch for the overall series, to start with that, is this is a sci-fi series, takes place several hundred years in the future, in which mankind is spread throughout the galaxy, and there is a current waging Cold War between two superpowers, the Illyrican Empire, which has conquered Earth and a few of its previous colonies, as well as the Commonwealth of Independent Systems, which is sort of the remaining independent planets that have banded together. They've ended up at this sort of uneasy stalemate, and against that backdrop, we have, in the first book, Captain Simon Kavalik, who is the leader of a special operations team for the Commonwealth military. He's got his ragtag band of operatives who are basically dedicated to trying and forestalling this Cold War from turning into a hot war. And a lot of times that involves doing things that maybe sometimes have some moral questionability to them. My overall sort of vibe of it, if you will, is the Mission Impossible in space feeling. If you like spy adventure stuff that's kind of fun and has a lot of action and humor, that's sort of my sweet spot. So that's sort of the overall pitch of the series. And the most recent volume, The Nova Incident, takes place on the Commonwealth capital planet, where there is an attack, an explosion happens in the capital city, and Kavalik and his team are kind of embroiled in this labyrinthine set of conspiracies and questions about who attacked them, why, and what this might have to do with some former colleagues of Kavalik and the team. I won't give away too much about that, but yeah, it kind of embroils in a slightly more claustrophobic way than previous volumes, because it takes place pretty much all on one planet, and involves a lot of our team trying to evade the authorities as they get to the bottom of this particular incident.
The Nova Incident, for that matter.
Indeed. Not the original title. Never has one of my titles survived to actual publication.
Oh, really?
Yep, there's a Easter egg for you. Literally every book I have written, the title has been changed at some point in the process, because apparently I'm not good at coming up with titles that people like.
Oh, man.
What was the Nova Incident supposed to be originally?
It actually had two titles, and I will tell you the working title, which I never planned on using because I liked it, but it gave away stuff. But the working title for it was Page's War.
Oh, interesting.
And it had maybe a slightly different vibe in terms of what, like, some of the details of what was happening there, but that was always in my head as the title for this one. And then up to very close to, like, I had written it and everything under a different title, and I think it was not fairly... I even have my sketch, my cover sketch that I did for it, even has the original, like, title that we had discussed with the publisher, which was The Nomad Protocol. And then my agent expressed concerns that it was not as closely linked to the subject, like to everything going on. Like the reference didn't come up enough for it to be the title. And so we bounced around a couple things and settled on The Nova Incident as the title, which I think is still a pretty strong title. But again, every time I try to come up with one, it gets changed to something else.
Well, I mean that is one of the things you mentioned. Actually, I was re-listening back to our podcast, episode 19, and you were basically describing Page's Return. Without so many words, and for us who didn't know what was going on back then. But I didn't pick up on Nomad until I definitely listened through it this last time. I was like, oh, Nomad, okay.
I will tell you, I like stuff that's small and thrown away and then pays off later. And I know that it's like sometimes self-indulgent perhaps, but I do feel like I really enjoy dropping seeds to things that then are like maybe don't get referenced again for a while. Because I want to feel like the work is there, and when you go back, that there is something new to be gained from it. So, like, as an example, like, way back in the Caledonian Gambit, there is a off-the-cuff reference. Kavalik is staking out a place, and he mentions as a cover story that he's waiting for his wife as a sort of, like, excuse. And when the woman he's talking to asks about her, he says that his wife's name is Natalie. And she doesn't even appear in that book. She doesn't appear until the Bayern Agenda. But I was like, well, I mean, this makes sense. And I knew who that character was already. I knew that character would show up. So I wanted to drop that little hint there for people who then eventually did like read them in close order or reread them and was like, wait a second. So that's fun for me, but again, maybe just me entertaining myself.
I don't think so. I think that's fun stuff for readers to find. to discover whether they happen upon it or whether they go looking for it. You know, you write something in a fourth book and it's like, wait a minute. You know, and you go back, where was that?
Yeah.
And I've got all the books on Kindle, so like searching is great. You know, you just search for the word.
And let me tell you, I have to do that sometimes. We're like, did I mention this character's name? Like, I've got like 4 books open and I'm searching through all of them. And I'm like, oh God, did I give them a name?
Well, I will say the trouble I'm having is the fact that now I'm recognizing that you do that. I'm being hyper aware of everything.
Yep, that's the plan. That's how it gets you.
Yes.
And now you're looking at everything. You're like, oh, which of these things will pay off later? And then I get some red herrings in there. And yeah.
Yes, yes.
So, for example, in preparation for this podcast, I also re-listened to the Nova incident over the past week. And there's one throwaway line that Tapper says where he says something along the lines of, you know, I swear I recognize that guy from somewhere, as they're leaving that entire thing. And
Yeah.
I'm just going, oh no, is this somebody he's had an interaction with? Oh no, what's going to happen? And anyway.
I won't say anything about that other than it's interesting that you noticed that line. Maybe they're...
It may or may not be foreshadowing.
Bookmark that one. How about that? Write it down somewhere, and we'll talk again in the future and see if it gets anywhere.
I love it. I love it. You know, that kind of stuff is what provides interest. It sells books, right?
I hope so.
Yes. I mean, Ryan is now hypersensitive to that kind of stuff, and he can't wait till the next book comes out. Well, all 3 of us can't wait till the next book comes out, and we're going to talk about that too. But knowing that you put that stuff in there is just, it's just like, yeah, I got to read this. I got to find out what else he's done, you know?
That's what I'm going for. So I hope that it does pay off. I know it's something that, like, you know, is not always an easy thing to sell books. Oh, pay attention to all the details of this book. It's the things I enjoy when I watch something or read something is seeing little, honestly, jokes that are extremely, like, targeted. I was just describing one to my wife last night, and I'm trying to remember what it was. But again, it was a joke from a movie or something that was, like, extremely specific. I was like, you're not going to get this unless you have, like, seen this other thing. Man, there was another one the other day where I think we were watching an episode of a sitcom here, and somebody mentions Tay Diggs following them on social media. And I was like, that feels like a joke to anybody who's been on social media in a certain era, because Tay Diggs would follow everybody on social media. And I'm like, but no, very small percentage of the audience is going to find that funny. But I found it funny.
It's like saying that, oh, what was the name of the guy who was everybody's friend on MySpace?
Yeah, Tom. Yeah.
Tom. It's like saying Tom's your number one friend or something.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think there was something that my daughters watched the other day. There was a joke that I got, of course, and they flew right over their heads. And I was like, wow, that's very targeted, that joke. I forget what it was, though, now. I can't remember, but it was hilarious to me. And they were like, Dad, why do you keep laughing? I would like to get into definitely the few things that we like about this book, Dan. Feel free to feel flattered, but you don't have to comment too much if you don't want to.
Okay.
But as we've been talking right away, and one of the things I really like about this book is that it is worth the build-up, right? There was the 3 books in front. They all kind of get put together a little bit for this book. There was fun stuff to read in the previous books, and it all just kind of pays off with this book. I mean, the biggest one being that Paige is alive. That was a great thing. I mean, when Scott texted me right away, he's like, oh, did you see this? I was like, yep, I read that part. Yep, very good. I hadn't gotten to the end at that point, but yeah, I was very excited about that. The one thing too that I liked was that this is very action-packed, and in the minor downtimes that there are, the backstory is being explained. So you're either getting a download of information like at Kovalek's house, where everybody's taking a little bit of a break, but pieces are all coming together, and maybe it's not just a download of information, but it's more that pieces are being put together. Or there's action happening that you have to follow because it's crucial to the plot. It's not just a fight, but it's a plot-driven action. So anyway, I very much enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
With this book especially.
I will say that for me, the thing that always stands out about all of the books that you write is the fact that they all feel so very human. Mm-hmm. The character interactions, despite the fact that it is hundreds of years in the future, we look at it and go, yeah, human beings don't change.
I will say that is actually something I aim for, and I will say it's something I like in reading fiction too. Probably my favorite sci-fi series of recent years in books, and I don't know about on TV, but it's up there, is The Expanse. And I think that's something The Expanse does really well, is all of those characters, even hundreds of years in the future, feel like people, and that is much more interesting to me than talking about, oh, we're so far in the future and people aren't even people anymore. It's like, no, I don't know, people People don't change. People are people.
People gonna people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have it written in my notes as a universe of human mistakes, just like we are here.
Yeah,
right? It's like
that's good.
we keep doing the things that we shouldn't be doing because we're all greedy or sinful or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way we're built. I did love the cliffhanger, though. that was great. And I texted Ryan right away, who I know who hates cliffhangers, saying, "Ryan, how did you feel at the end of this book? What did you do?"
So I love to hate cliffhangers because my feeling is I finish it, I get to that cliffhanger, and I'm like, but I want to know.
Yeah, right.
But I want to know. And then I look and go, wait, where's his contract for his next book?
But also, one of the other big things, I think we mentioned this to you last time, but the side jokes are the best. I mean, that's one of the things I love about these books. Yeah. All the little thoughts, all the little stuff that you're putting in there. I mean, even the Pratchett first editions was great.
Again, I like to amuse myself. I, have to put a lot of words down on a page, and if I'm going to write something, I want to feel like it's there for a purpose, and I'm there to entertain myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the best part.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that Nate now knows that reference.
Exactly. Yeah, Ryan's been introducing me to all the Pratchett books, so it is because of him I know that joke. So that's very good.
Excellent.
Honestly, the interactions between the characters, the plots within plots, and seeing how all of these people get out of these messes. And I will say, the moment where you realize that somebody has a really dumb plan and somehow they're going to have to make it work. All of these things I love about your books.
I'm great at dumb plans in real life, too. They don't always work out as well.
We're going to have to do something, but it sounds really stupid.
The spacewalk?
Yeah.
The only challenge with that, I think, is continually coming up with new stupid plans that we haven't done yet. Topping yourself is always a challenge.
Wow. So speaking of topping yourself, let's just ask the question, do you have a contract for the next book?
This is one of those places where I end up in a slightly tricky position.
Okay.
So what I will tell you is I can't tell you.
Makes sense.
Okay.
I am always a little hesitant to talk about things before deals are done and everything is signed and dotted and whatever. I can say with some confidence that one way or another, what happens next will be a thing that you find out. I don't know the time frame.
Okay.
I don't know what form it will appear. I have reason to be very optimistic about it at this particular juncture, but I'm not in a position where I can actually announce anything. So that's the awkward position to put in. But I wrote with a cliffhanger, fairly, I don't want to say confident, because at the time I wrote it, I actually had no idea whether or not I would be able to do something else. But, certainly the current publishing environment is such that even if I was unable to get a contract, I would still probably make an effort to put it out in one form or another because it's important to me. I want to write this series the way I want to write it. I've always set out to tell a story with sort of particular broad strokes to it, and I had a plan, and I don't like the idea of leaving things unfinished. So there is always, as you've seen the stuff I've done with sort of the little short stories that I've put out to sort of fill in gaps, that was always kind of like an experiment to see okay, what kind of stuff can I do myself if I need to do stuff myself? So yeah, I can say that I feel confident that the next chapter will arrive in one form or another, but I can't offer specifics at this particular juncture.
No problem.
So what we can say is everybody go buy the books.
Yes, exactly. That helps, I will say. Buying the books is the best way to ensure there are more books.
Yes, because I will say that in addition to what immediately happens, I also really want to know what is going to happen with Taylor's family.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Based on the connecting short story that...
Yes. Honestly, some of those threads I spin out because I'm super curious and I want to know things about them too. And I don't always have long-term plans for these things, but they're always there. And what's nice is I have very good luck with sort of, in some cases, even just accidental synergy that maybe something in my subconscious is working on it. And I'll think to myself, oh, wait, that thread that I spun out there, that actually intersects perfectly with this, and go back and check and yeah, this all makes sense and kind of hangs together. So there are things that I sort of put out there sometimes with an idea that it will tie in later, even if I don't have a specific plan for it. So we'll see what exactly happens there.
Well, let's bring it back to one of your threads then. You were mentioning this earlier, but was Nomad designed for the return of Paige, or did you just tweak this as something that you could use to bring Paige back?
That, I mean, given my admission earlier that the original title of this book, and when I say original title, I mean like sort of planned out the broad strokes of this series many, many years ago. I think before I even started really working on the first book. And that book was titled Paige's War at the time. So I always knew he would come back. I always knew that the whole thing I wanted to do, the end of the Baron agenda is sort of flashback to in the Nova incident. I very specifically wrote that in a ambiguous fashion so that people could wonder whether or not what they thought was happening, was actually what was happening, right? Like you leave people enough sort of runway to make their own conclusions, and hopefully you can maybe nudge them in the direction of what you want them to think. And then I wanted to make sure that I had a book in between to sort of let it sit. If he had popped up immediately back in like the Aleph extraction, I mean, there wasn't really room for him there because I wanted to tell a different story, but I felt like it wouldn't have time to marinate. Like it wouldn't have time to like develop into the point so that like when he does come back, not only is it a surprise, but it is an impact on the characters because he's been gone for a while, right? Like they have dealt with what they thought was what happened, right? Especially Brody. Like Brody is like dealing with the fallout from this all through the Aleph extraction and being like, oh man, like what am I into? And if he had just popped up there again, it would have felt very hollow because he wouldn't have time to sort of deal with all the fallout. And so having him pop up kind of when you least expect it, I think is fun. And it kind of throws all the characters for a loop because like, you're like, wait a second, I have just come to terms with the fact that I thought you were dead.
Yep, that was good.
It was very good.
Maybe time to fester, right?
Yeah.
Listening back, I was definitely listening more closely to see what Kovalik said, but yeah, he never said killed.
Nope.
At all. Like didn't even make only hints to it in the fact that he didn't walk back with a gun, right? He just let people's imaginations jump there.
Yeah. I try to be very careful, like especially if I do know where I'm going, I try to be very careful about the wording and make it in such a way that you can sort of see. Again, I push you in a slight direction because I want you to look at it from one direction. In my head, I'd always sort of played out the end of that scene as you see it in the Nova incident, where it's like you have the same conversation, but then at the end, he hands him the gun instead of shooting him. And so like I knew, knowing that going in, let me sort of just like cut the scene short at the moment where it's like in a movie, right? You would cut away and then let people make their own inference.
Well, and shows that he trusted Paige that much too, not to shoot him back, right?
Right.
I think that having that time for Brody to basically go through grieving, go through that process, and then have that turnaround, it worked so well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He was really mad. You did that well too. Yeah.
Addie's confusion's the best.
Yeah. So Nomad is all caps. What we asked why that is.
That was more of a like tip of the hat to like spy convention.
Okay.
Code names and program names. Should it be all caps? Maybe in retrospect it should have been, like a cat, just capitalized. But I think for me it was sort of a code name / the whole sort of protocol of him going out on his own was all sort of grouped together. I mean, in the past I've used it to signify like operation names and stuff like that. But there's also code names, right? Like to reference one that comes up a little bit at the end here, Cardinal, which is an ongoing plot thread about one of the general sources, also used all caps because I think of it as sort of like an intelligence source codename, a thing I probably lifted from like when I used to read Tom Clancy books like 20 years ago.
And even Natalie's one, Damocles, is that what it is?
Damocles, yeah.
Damocles. It's kind of fun. So for fun.
Yeah, for fun.
Okay.
And oftentimes they have references or they tie in a little bit. Like, Nomad is wandering, Paige is out kind of on the outside in the wilderness. Damocles is the sword of Damocles, which is the thing that like hung over the head of it's an old story about like the sword that's hung over the head, and it sort of symbolizes like I think the tenuousness of being in charge or something, like making decisions.
I do have to ask, because I know that you have, in the past time that we were here, you talked about how you tend not to get into a lot of like gadgetry and things like that. But I do have to ask, for your science, how much of your science is really researched and based on like a fact, or where do you kind of decide where the line is to kind of go like more soft sci-fi?
Yeah, that's a good question because I'm obviously not a scientist by training. I know a little bit, but just enough to be dangerous. I do have a close family member who is a former high school physics teacher who is also now does some work for NASA, actually, in their education programs. And he is one of my test readers and has been since book one. And he gives me a lot of feedback on science stuff and helps me try to find ways to make what I want to happen, but also make it both interesting and sort of, if not adhere directly to like science that's known, at least push into areas where the science is unclear and saying like, well, you could do it this way, or like you could do this. And, you know, nobody really knows how that works. So you can kind of get away with whatever you want. But like having somebody who understands I want to tell a plot and I want to tell a story in an interesting and fun way. And so he tries to find ways to like help me enhance that with a little bit of scientific knowledge. I mean, the best example I can give is I ended up rewriting a scene in The Aleph Extraction, the scene where Brody ends up in the wormhole and falls off the ship and has to like get back to the ship. That ended up being one that he helped me kind of redo because I basically... when I wrote it, he's like, all right, this is not how any of this works. I'm like, all right, okay, so I totally screwed this up. He's like, well, here's what you could do that will let you preserve or like keep the emotional beats and like the sort of the thrust of the scene and continue in the sort of way you're trying to do it, but and like still have the tension you want and all that, but it will fit a little better with how this would actually work. And I try not to let the science trump the story. I don't want to be flagrantly like ignoring things, but you know, that's the fun of science fiction is you can say like, how come everybody can walk around on your ships? It's like fake gravity. Like, sorry, I don't want to worry about it. I don't want to have to like spend all these pages talking about the specifics of how, you know, the systems work so that they can walk around on their space stations or ships or whatever, or how, you know, certainly like transit between different galactic systems works. Like I need that to exist so I can say there are wormholes and that's how it works. And, you know, I'll get into a few of the specifics like sort of broadly, but I'm not writing a physics textbook by any means. So I try to keep it within the realm of at least the plausible, if not the possible.
I found your description of the tether from Terra Nova to the station to be kind of an example of that. Like, really? Nanometers thick? Really? That's cool.
That one I did do some research on. And again, that's tricky because it's a thing that doesn't exist, but it's a thing that's been heavily theorized. Like people have talked about like, all right, if you're going to build this sort of space elevator concept, how would that work? And I read a bit here and there about it. And the answer was like, it seems like every 10 to 20 years, the science on that gets revised as we figure out new things and, you know, new materials and, you know, consider all this stuff. So like by evidence of the fact that we don't have one, you can't say this is how it would work, right. But I can sort of project from what people have theorized. And even that stuff, it turned out like as I was doing research on that, I think that was something that was talked about much more maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and there hadn't been as much about it in sort of the last few years. So certainly the science I was looking at there might be on the older side. But that is a great example of a place where I, you know, talked to my science consultant, and he's like, all right, so, you know, this is the thing and this is the challenge. Like, these are the problems you're dealing with, and you can broadly think about it about here's how to overcome those. But yeah, obviously we don't know how to do that, or else we would build one.
Yeah, then we could keep our space station. That'd be nice. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh.
There you go.
So Nate is probably going to have to apologize for me because I am a social studies teacher.
Okay.
And so I am very curious about what is the, I guess the best way to say it is the structure of the Commonwealth.
Okay, sure.
Because Nate and I, perhaps because we were approaching this with different understandings of executive.
Okay, yeah.
He was thinking of like an executive council, where I was like, no, he's talking about a chief executive. There's one person. So
the answer is, and I can tell you this because this is something I do have a little more backed up, but I feel like I will confess probably not the most clear I could have been on it over the course of the books because my understanding of it changed a bit. In my mind, the Commonwealth executive is more like the sort of the EU, which is the, I'm trying to remember, is it called, it's not called the EU executive, it's called the, I can't remember now, but there is like a executive level council. And then I believe, and it is mentioned kind of offhandedly at a couple points in some of the books, there is a Secretary General who is the presiding member of the executive, essentially. In my head, it changes, not quite like a rotating thing like, the UN or whatever, but like there is a elected official who sits at the top of this, though whether that's a direct election or a representative election, I haven't decided because it hasn't been directly relevant to the stories that I've been telling. But in my head, there is an executive council that is basically run by, one person, because eventually you need to have one person making a decision. So the answer is both.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So it's an executive council with a chief executive. Okay.
Correct. There you go. Nailed it.
But it's unclear how many knew about the plot to listen in on all the communications.
Right. How far does that go? That is a different question, and I think one that will probably be left somewhat vague for the moment because, it's hard to track that information down, but at least some people at the highest echelons. And like, again, in this book, the stuff that they're uncovering is stuff that happened in the past. Mm-hmm. So who's still there that knows about it, who was in what positions when it happened, like all of that's kind of up for play.
Yeah, because when Ryan told me he thinks it's one person, I was like, well, that makes more sense because then, you can convince one person to spy on everybody. But could they have convinced the whole council to do it? Well, and maybe the whole council doesn't know. Anyway, that's part of speculation. Mm-hmm. That was an interesting conversation we had. So we noticed you dedicated this book to librarians. We had a good time talking about your teacher last time because you dedicated Aleph to your teacher. But we know your parents are librarians, but can you expand more upon your dedication to librarians in this book and what they have meant to you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, both my parents, as I mentioned, are retired now librarians. I grew up a lot in libraries. I go to work with both my parents at various times. I also have an aunt and a cousin who are librarians. So there are a lot of librarians in my family. I read a ton as a kid and obviously spent a lot of time in like school libraries as well. And I've worked in libraries as well. I spent a lot of my sort of like, late teenage, early 20s years working summers in libraries, and I worked at my college library and all of that. So I've always had very close connections with libraries. They mean a lot to me and my family. I believe librarians do amazing work that is often unheralded and sort of like teachers on low budgets, and they do something that is very much about a calling a lot of times rather than something that they get into. Certainly not for the money and certainly not for the fame, but because they believe that, helping kids or helping people read and access information and all of that is super important. So yeah, I'm always a fan of supporting local libraries and making sure that they are well-funded and well-regarded in communities so that they stick around. And now, especially as someone with a young kid who I know will benefit from libraries when they get a little older, it's really important to me. Especially the climate in the U.S. right now has certainly been much more controversial when it comes to issues of people want to ban books again, and we're getting around to all this stuff, and it drives me bananas because, again, I think librarians are so critical and get enough flack as it is. So, I just wanted to shine some more light at that, and, obviously the personal connections to my family as well mean that I've, held them in the highest esteem for my entire life.
Nice.
You mean it's not fair we just walk up to them and ask them, what book was this character in? And they're supposed to just know
sometimes they know, right?
Know.
And that's impressive.
They often do. That's what amazes me.
We need that.
And they know where it is on the shelf, and they know whether it's in or out, probably based on memory. It's like, wow, how do you know all that?
And you're right, especially in the current climate, especially in America, they have received a whole lot of flack. Mm-hmm. Undeservedly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to quickly get off of this before I go down the rabbit hole of depression over the current state of politics. Social studies teacher.
It is kind of funny that that it takes place in Yamanaka Base.
Yes.
Since that's where Scott was reading the book.
Oh, really? Okay. So I don't even remember where I came up with that particular name. I'm sure I was just like looking around, or it popped in my head, honestly. So that could be total coincidence, but I'm glad that it had some personal resonance.
Yeah, I texted Nate when I read that. It's like, whoa, I'm there. Yamanaka Lake is a lake just 2 miles or so from Mount Fuji.
Gotcha.
And I was on vacation in a cabin part reading the book, and that came up. I was like, yeah, this is cool.
That's cool. I enjoy that.
Cool.
I knew that was going to happen.
Do you know what it means?
No idea.
Yama is mountain and Naka is central or center or inside kind of
Oh,
idea.
okay.
So Central Mountain.
Cool. All right. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting seeing a lot of the mix of cultures with the naming conventions.
Yes.
I do like to mix stuff up because I don't want to end up in a thing where it's all super like, oh, everybody in the future has Western names or, English names or whatever. I don't know. That seems ridiculous and unplausible. So I like to try and look around and try to, find different names. I don't know if anybody's picked up on this, but there is a theme to some of the location names on Nova. But I don't know if anybody's picked up on that. So we'll just leave that there.
Oh, now you've got me curious. In Caledonia, it was all Scottish or Gaelic at least based,
Yeah.
Oh.
But is Kovalik supposed to speak with a British accent?
Not in my mind, no.
Oh, I wanted him to have one, like the first book. I kind of...
Kovalik doesn't. In my head, Tapper might have a slight, more of a blue-collar British, not quite Cockney, but sort of...
South London.
I saw there was a question here, and I know we sort of glossed over it, but I'm going to throw it out there because it is... In my head, he gets played in the movie or TV version by one of two people, either Jerome Flynn,
oh yeah,
who played Bronn in Game of Thrones. He's got the right delivery and everything, or Sean Pertwee, who played. If you've seen, there's a TV show Gotham that was about the young Bruce Wayne, and he played Alfred in that, and he's really good. He looks the part for me. He is perfect casting, has the right voice and delivery and attitude. I've always enjoyed his work, so he would be my pick for I think he fits the role to a T. So in my head, he's got that kind of sort of slightly rough British accent.
So that was for Tapper, you're saying?
That's for Tapper, yeah. Yeah, Kovalik is a little bit harder to pin down for me. I think most recently, actually, the actor who I think embodies the right sort of vibe for him is actually Anson Mount, who plays Captain Pike on Strange New Worlds.
Ooh, yes.
He's got that same sort of he can do the dry delivery. He's got kind of a little bit of a twinkle in his eye, the slight the grayed hair a little bit. I think he would be a pretty good Kovalik. I don't think he wants to go down that rabbit hole again, but a different sci-fi captain, But I think he has a good demeanor about him that really fits Kovalik.
Yeah, I could see that.
Who would you pick for Addie?
Yeah, the actress who, when I first picture in my head, I get very obscure with this because I have a very good memory for faces, and I really pick up a lot on personal demeanor clues and stuff like that and behaviors that make me associate with people. But there's an actress named Nora Zetner, Zehetner, who's been in some smaller movies. She is not a super big one, but she has kind of a Hattie style sort of demeanor to me and bearing. I haven't seen her ever play a role like this, but I feel like she is somebody who I pictured in my head as being a good example. But I don't have as strong a connection there as I do with some of the other characters here. I think with all these, I will say, I think there is a wide variety of super talented actors who could play these roles. And I certainly also, I feel like they're characters who I see a lot of debate adaptations of making the characters hew more closely to how people picture the characters in the book. I think that's always a trick because people have different pictures in their head. And so I don't feel beholden to how the characters are necessarily even described on the page if somebody can capture the essence of the character. And especially I think that for me, background, I don't care. If you want to, I think, for example, if somebody came to me and was well, Idris Elba wants to play Kovalik. I was yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Totally. No problems. If the actor is good and understands the character, I don't care. They don't have to match the picture I had in my head, much less readers have in their head, is my feeling.
I think he would do a good job too. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
It would be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I hope we do get some of that someday. That'd be nice.
Yeah, me too. That'd be nice. But I can tell you there's nothing happening with that right now. So.
Who would you want to produce your movies? What studio? Would you sell to Disney?
Yeah, I honestly don't have a strong feeling about it. Again, I would just want to see somebody who got it, right? And was willing to commit to the ideas behind it and really understood what the story was about. I think that depends so much more on the development producers behind it rather than the studio, but the people who are hey, we love this property and we want to turn it into something and we we want to do it because we love it. You know, I think the guys who did The Expanse did a fantastic job with that, for example. Like, you know, stuff gets changed and, you know, they have to make different adaptations for TV as opposed to on the books. But I think they did a really nice job. I will throw out, recently watched The Peripheral as well on Amazon, which is an adaptation of a William Gibson book. And I hadn't read the whole book, but again, I feel like there was a case where the people behind it was like, look, not everything as presented in the book is going to work well on TV, but we're going to like use kind of what we know as people who create TV shows to tell the bones of the story in the same way and try to like get everything sort of to work in that way. And I think that was, you know, when you make an adaptation, you make choices and you don't just photocopy the book and put it up on the screen because it's a different medium and it has its own different considerations. And you shouldn't just try to like print out the pages and slap them on the screen and have everybody read them on the screen because that would be silly.
The only danger is there are so many times where the book to movie transition does not go well.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, people get the stuff wrong and it's a risk, but you know, such is life. You got to roll the dice there.
Yep.
There's definitely been adaptations of books that I have loved that have turned into really terrible movies or TV shows, or even ones I didn't watch because I heard they were bad. And so, you know, you take your chances.
Yep. I think you hit it right on the head, though, is you got to have a group of people who really love the property.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to do, you know, want to respect the heart and the soul of it. I think that's where it comes down to.
Exactly.
So we'd like to pull on some threads.
Sure.
As we speculate about the future, we definitely understand that you're not going to confirm or deny anything probably here, but feel free to steal any of our ideas.
Sure, thank you. Yeah,
I'm sure you've probably already thought of all of them already, though, but still, we'll have fun. I have some thoughts about the things that are in the wind. I know one of the things that Ryan and I were talking about, and this is kind of what spawned the what kind of government is a Nova question, is who is Kester working for or with? Is he working for himself and is just stupid? Well, or just headstrong, maybe. Not so stupid, but, you know, just figuring that he's just going to try to get himself further along.
Agenda, yeah.
My money's on he's getting played.
Yeah, he's working for somebody who doesn't realize what he's working for somebody.
Interesting. Interesting theories.
That is one of the questions.
I'm going to be very non-committal.
Yes, of course you are.
For sure.
Yes, of course.
I enjoy that character because he's got a very specific, like, again, he has an attitude that like puts him in a specific box, and when you read him, you feel like, God, I don't like this guy. I mean, but I love writing him. I love writing him because he's so irritating, and he has such a strong like agenda or whatever you want to call drive that he kind of leaps off the page for me, which is fun. And it's fun to have an antagonist who is just like kind of in the same business, right? And just doesn't like our main characters, but we like our main characters, right? So like it's just frustrating.
Yeah. So my money, he's arresting them all for something really silly, like a parking ticket, and it's just going to get in real big trouble later. That's what's going to happen. I'm sure of it. I do want to see what's going to happen with Tarnhelm in the future. That one has kind of gone to the background.
Yeah. Yep. That's a plate that's spinning there somewhere.
I would think so. That's going to be fun. What else do you have, Ryan?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, especially in rereading the short story, I do want to find out what is going to happen with Taylor's family, especially after everything seems like it's gotten a little rocky there, shall I say.
Yeah.
And again, I think the big one for me is essentially the plot of the next book. How are they going to get out of this? The ending scene ending in that way makes you just go, but what's going to happen to them?
Yeah, right. You know, I always want to leave the readers wanting more, and I felt like I wanted to wait until I was deep enough in the series to really do a cliffhanger. Like, I don't think, for that reason, all the previous books, they end with open threads, but they don't end on a cliffhanger note, because I felt like, you know, I want to get people in the door, and I want people to feel like they, you know, haven't gotten cheated out of the end of a story. And even in Nova, I feel like I wanted to make sure I wrapped up the sort of primary threads of the story, and then add a little bit of a hook on the end there. So, you know, it was intentional, but it was also something that I've tried not to overuse in previous books, because I don't want that to get to be too much of a, like, another book that ends on a cliffhanger. It's all just one big story. It's like, no, the stories are still discrete, but, like, this is one place where I really wanted to have, like, a hook lead in.
Yeah, actually, I think I finally understood. I didn't catch it the first time. I think because I was still reeling from, oh my goodness, the LF tablet book ended, where I finally understood what was going on with that ending,
Yes.
with the princess. But yeah, glad I reread it. And actually, that is one of the threads too that I was thinking of mentioning. Is that that's still out there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, some good stuff. Lots of great stuff to write books about.
Am I gonna remember all these things? That's my worry. Is like, there's so many threads sometimes, and I do have ideas. And yes, there's stuff I'm planning on tying together, and there's stuff like I said, I lay down stuff early because I'm sort of pointing a direction for things to go in. But I do sometimes worry I'll forget a thread, or like, oh no, I never addressed this thing that I left there 3 books ago. But I think I'm feeling pretty good about it.
I mean, you can almost chalk Tarnhelm up to the fact that it's going to get put in mothballs in a warehouse somewhere with a stamp on it, and no one's going to read about it.
That's right. It's at the end of Raiders there. It's
Right.
put in a crate and thrown in somewhere and lost.
Bureaucracy.
A lot of red tape.
I'm wondering about some of the characters, whether they're going to come back, like Maul, and what your plans are for them.
Speaking of them, actually, I will say that I really liked the evolution of how we got to see their character now that they were out of a essentially crisis situation and getting to understand their personality and how it almost gets them blown up.
Yeah, that was a character who started as kind of a throwaway at the end of Olive Extraction. I just needed a character in this particular scene that they're in, and kind of then ended up like fleshing them out a little bit more in Olive, and then in Nova I was like, well, having established that they are around and kind of not dealing with their fate really at the end. I think originally they were just sort of like, oh, yep, somebody who helped us, and then they're off to something else. And I was like, they're fun enough. I wanted to keep them coming back. So yeah, it's definitely fun. I think that's one of the funs of having a long running series too. At this point, is the world has become so populated with characters that it's fun to be able to pick and choose and be like, who would work well in this story is this character, right? Like, we've met so many people that it's fun to have them sort of pop up at various places and come back. Again, one of my joys of watching long-running TV shows is recurring guest stars, right? Like, because I don't know what it is about that. There's some freedom there, right? I think we talked, DS9 got mentioned earlier. Garrick, right? Garrick is one of the great all-time recurring characters.
Yes.
He doesn't need to be in every episode, but over the course of 7 seasons, every time he pops up, there's a specific thread, and there's episodes that deal all about him, right? Like, that's fun to have somebody who is not your standard, regular cast member, but who is still so integral to the story that they get to have all these plot lines. So I have a theory that you can judge an ongoing series by its recurring characters and how strongly you feel about them.
Interesting. That's really a cool thought. Yeah, and Garrick was such an interesting, intriguing character because of his backstory that we got some of. And, I can see developing Mauls as well. We know that they were a stowaway on the ship. Well, we do know a little bit about that happened, why that happened, but just to get more information on their story. And then what they're going to be doing in the future with the team, if indeed they're still on the team, right?
Yeah.
But I also do have to respect, though, too, that it's not every I was glad to see that after Bayern that Eric didn't join the team. I was glad that okay, yeah, there are characters that come and are just pulled in and are not used again, too, because otherwise it would be like Kovalik adopts everybody to be part of his team.
Yeah, your team gets unwieldy at a certain point.
Right.
But again, you can dip in and out, and I do feel like there are characters. I will say, looking forward at stories I may want to tell in the future, there are definitely characters from previous books who I would want to pop up again in the situation that fits that, right? Like, in the logical course. The thing that always frustrates me in other ones is like, stories where, and I think people reference this in the, to like some of the standalone Marvel movies, for example, is like, why wouldn't you call X? Why wouldn't you call this person to help you out? Predicated on the earlier movies or whatever, or the earlier, books in these series, this person is like perfectly well suited. And the fun of the books series is I don't have to pay an actor. Right? It's not like, we couldn't get that actor. It's like, no, I can write whoever I want into this scene. And it's logical, right? Like, it's like, we're dealing with this situation. We know that is good at this. this person, right? So that's the fun for me, is having this broadcast of characters that you can sort of pick and choose. The trick for me is always just remembering how to write them.
Are you keeping your wiki updated?
Yes, I did have a good moment the other day where I was trying to think if I had named a character, and I went to the wiki and discovered I had named that character, and it's like, thank you, past me. I owe you one.
That's great. Addie is another one. Great character, just great character. And I hope she comes back. I don't know what your plans are. Of course, you're not going to confirm or deny anything, but...
again, taking the viewpoint of a TV series or a movie series, there are certain, starring characters who I think you can feel pretty confident will show up in a future installment, just based on their prominence, right? It's the secondary characters who you get to sort of play with and have people rotate in and out.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, even with this one, I was thinking it draws a little bit of a parallel to the original Mission Impossible, where you've got your flimsies and you're picking the ones you want to bring.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nat was written kind of out of the beginning of this story, but I think it still worked really well. I think that was what was great. It's like, oh yeah, Nat has her thing, she's doing her thing, and we're paying attention to these characters. Just kind of like Paige is written out of Bayern for most of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it worked well. Like, yeah, we're dealing with these characters here. These ones will catch back up and stuff like that.
That's right. Do we ever find out what Nat was doing?
That's in the short story.
That's the short story. Yeah, is essentially, if you check there. Again, this is me because I like making connections to things. If you look at the last bit of Homecoming, the very end of Homecoming, the message she gets from Kovalik at the very end there is the message he sends in Nova when he's at the cabin. Mm-hmm. He basically sends her a message asking for help, and she gets that message at the end of Homecoming. So that's how it dovetails with her showing up sort of seemingly out of the blue towards the end of Nova. And again, some of that was expediency for me. I love Nat, and I want to use her in everything, but I did not have room for her in this beginning of this story. It was so packed with all these characters and all this stuff going on that I didn't want to give her short shrift by like putting her in the background and not having her do very much. I'd rather have her like just off doing her own thing. But again, the virtue of having a longer running series is I can have a character pop in 3/4 of the way through the story. And because she's somebody who has still been like a fairly major character for the last couple books, I don't have to spend the time like explaining who this character is. It's like, this character is a fairly significant character. You know who they are. So they can pop in at the end there, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's real life. People have other missions. I mean, especially Nat, who was not necessarily solely devoted to the SPT. Yeah, she has other stuff she has to do.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I just found the problem. I don't have Homecoming. Nate, Ryan, you have failed me. I didn't know it was out.
Oh, sorry.
I'm downloading it now.
I didn't realize that it was my responsibility to make sure that you...
Right,
you found the whole library.
I will be talking with your supervisor. Oh, I already am.
We got to set up the Amazon alert for you.
That's right. I'm following Dan Moren. I think I clicked that after Homecoming came out. So.
Yeah, that was an attempt to sort of bridge stuff, just because I like writing characters who don't necessarily get their time in the full novels. Mm-hmm. That is something that I've thought about doing, and so having the little short stories to bridge these various gaps to me is fun, because it's not something like the commitment of having a character as like a POV character right in a book is like they need to have an arc, they need to have like enough to do. Like I don't want to write like 1 or 2 chapters with a character doing their POV in a book, because I feel like, again, that's giving them kind of short shrift. But I can spend some time in a short story inside somebody's head, for example. And I don't want to rule out either, like I think part of Homecoming for me also was finding her voice in distinction to all the other, Kovalik or Brody or Addie. Like, she has a different voice, she has a different approach to things. And so a short story gave me an opportunity to like really get in her head and spend time with that POV instead, and figure out like, okay, what does she think like? What does she sound like? Like, what is her as opposed to all those other characters?
So that means we're going to get a Tapper short story. Sorry.
You know, it is on my list.
You talked about that last time.
Yeah, I know. I remember you guys brought it up. It was a request, and it's definitely on my list.
Cool.
I haven't found the right story for him yet, but I do want to do one because I think in my head there's one that's about him going on vacation and of course getting like involved in something that happens on vacation and I can never take a vacation.
That's great. That's great. And of course things will be blown up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. There will definitely be explosion wherever he goes.
He's going to be given a Horgon when he goes on vacation. Like Captain Picard. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, we'll get into that. It'll get really interesting.
Thank you very much for coming, Dan. Very exciting to have you on again. And for answering all of our questions.
Well, not answering some of them.
Right.
Keep you coming back.
Yes.
Dropping hints here and there. It's okay. We're going to listen to this next one and we're like, oh, that's why the 5th book is like that.
That's what he was talking about. Ah, that's what he meant. I appreciate it.
We can end the podcast on a cliffhanger, right?
That's right. And now what I'll tell you will happen in the next book is, nope, sorry, gotta go, out of time. No, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. It's fun to talk about. Not to say it's like frowned upon talking about your own books, but like, I don't know. I write these books because they're books I'd want to read. When I talk to people who have read them and are really invested in them, it's fun for me because I like just talking with people who enjoy the stories and are as, possibly as invested in them as I am. I'm sure nobody is as invested, but like close. So it's fun for me to actually talk about all the little details and stuff because you guys pick up stuff and that's great. I love it. And I love hearing your speculation and theories, all of that. It's super fun for me. And as I mentioned, I got KitKats. So really, there's no downside.
I love it.
Glad to hear it. Yep. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for taking your time out and joining us for, honestly, what's been just a great conversation.
Indeed.
Absolutely. It's been a delight.
Ryan, what do you have for me next time?
So next time, we're going to do 2 things. First of all, it's just about the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nate, I think it's time for our year wrap-up episode.
Already.
Yeah, already. Which, of course, means, based on the sole pattern of what we've done in past years, I think we need to read another Sanderson book.
Yeah, this time we'll read The Bands of Mourning. But it has often worked out that our year wrap-up lands on a Brandon Sanderson book.
Isn't this our 3rd one?
Well, the first one was on Banner Agenda, the second one was on Mistborn, and the third one was on Hero of Age.
So anyway, just because, it's the year wrap-up, I thought, well, let's continue with Sanderson, especially because, based on when we're recording this, if I get you to read this soon, I can get you to read book 4 very shortly after it comes out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. You're reading a Sanderson book soon after its actual release, and not like 8 years after it's been written.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking. We'll do our year wrap-up episode, talk about our favorite things of the year, and read another Sanderson book.
So, we hope you found something nice about this hill that we were willing to die on. And we appreciate all of our listeners coming along on this journey with us. And if you ever thought to yourself, hey, I really like these guys and what they do, and I just wish that there was some way I could support them, know that you can. Visit myhilltodieon.com/members for more details. But what does it mean to be a member? Well, for the low price of $2 a month or $15 a year, you can help support this podcast. And by doing so, you'll get access to the members-only podcast, Not My Hill, where we discuss things that are, well, probably somebody else's hill to die on. We have strong feelings about them, but as the title says, they're definitely not hills that we'd be willing to die on. In addition, you will also get access to the suggestion form, where you can make suggestions for Listener Hill episodes, where we will watch, read, or generally climb up a hill that you're willing to die on, and we'll talk all about it. But know that the conversation doesn't have to end here. The discussion can continue with us through Reddit at the subreddit My Hill to Die On, or by contacting us through email, which is, to no one's surprise, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. And finally, we upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is also named, say it with me now, folks, My Hill to Die On.
We're doing the intro, right?
Right, we have to do the intro. We decided early on in our thing to put the episode number in the intro, so we have to record it every time.
Yeah, that's you learn a lot of stuff later on in life that makes you rethink stuff that you decided to do earlier.
Yep. Oh, well. But that's kind of fun because we get you guys to read some of it too.
Yeah.
So,
Nate, I've told you, we can just record the last half of it and then just record one sentence.
No, that would be so. Why? You want to do a clever thing like that? Yeah.
because then we could say, because then we just throw in a 68.
Well, I mean, so over on the Incomparable, Jason Snell has done the smart thing of having the episode intros recorded by the test speech.
The robot, yeah.
So that saves a lot of trouble, I think.
I love it.
To join us on our hill to die on.
Whoa.
Good. More drama.
That's what you need.
Should we do a take two? Let's do a take two.
No, we never do a take two.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Whoa.
It's gold. Print it.
All in one
Yes.
take.
Whoa. Just one step back from going live, right?
That's right.
I'm not doing this live.
Is there any news about the next Bond, who it will be? I haven't heard news in a while.
No. What was it? No Time to Die only came out last year?
Was it only last year? Or was it?
Well, it got delayed for a long time
Yeah,
because it was
that's
one of the ones
right.
that hit the pandemic
That's
issues.
right.
And it was supposed to come out in 2020, I think, and then didn't come out. Because I watched it last year. If they're smart, I think they'll let it sit for a few years and let sort of get some distance between Daniel Craig and whatever they decide to do next. And I don't think there's a rush. I mean, I know you want to always be monetizing in this day and age, and you can't just have IP sitting there not making any money. But at the same time, I think they'll probably behoove them to consider, how do you want to redo this franchise in a way that works for the 2020s and put some daylight between you and what you've done before. Because I think that was a very successful thing about the Craig franchise. You know, it had mixed results from movie to movie, but I think it differentiated itself strongly, at least when Casino Royale came out, from the Brosnan stuff.
Yes.
Which, had a very different feel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and how can you get a TV show that you can put on your streaming service too, right?
That's true.
Yeah, we're gonna I have to do some shuffling. The history document's all messed up because now we're reordering things.
You have the what documents?
The history document.
So sue me.
No, it was a good idea. So Ryan decided that we were going to make this 68. We've actually already recorded an episode 68.
We've recorded a 68 and a 69.
But we're like, we should get this one out sooner though, right? So, because otherwise it won't come out till mid-March.
You could just do you can just redo the intros, right?
We'll just redo the intro. And we actually already have we're going to talk about Nova Incident recorded, because we were going to record that for episode 7. This was going to be episode 70.
Oh.
So we already have it recorded. We just have it in a different part. So we'll just move it around.
I see. The magic of editing, quote unquote.
Yep.
No, wait, you said, what do you have for me next week?
Oh, did I say next? I always say next week.
Okay.
But I'm glad you said Get Just this time too.
What? What?
We have a discussion. So the line you read, and we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just.
Did I say get just or just get?
No, you said get just, because I was listening for it to see what you would say.
Because basically, I find that whatever's written, I will do the opposite.
Oh.
Right. So for the longest time, we had written just get one more person, but I could not say it that way. Every time I just went right through it, I would say get just one more person.
And then listening to Nate, I ended up saying that. And then we swapped it in the document, and now I started doing the opposite again.
Oh, dear. I think get just makes more sense, because it's just one more. It ever modifies the adjective, one.
But if it's just get one more person, then if we can just get one more person.
Oh, so you're modifying the getting of the person.
The getting,
Right.
yes.
I mean, either one makes sense. I like the way it's written on the script there, personally.
Whoever wrote that script, they got something.
Way to pat yourself on the back there, Ryan.
You're right. I have to pat myself on the back because nobody else will.
Aw.
No, it's good. We use it everywhere. I copied and pasted what you wrote, put it everywhere. I mean, it's in the RSS description. It's on the website. It's everywhere.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So you still have to do the outro. I wondered why you don't just record that once and...
I have asked that very question.
Because every time I've listened, it's exactly the same. But I know it's slightly different pitching or emphasis, and it's like...
Part of it is the microphones sound, every time we set up our microphones, they're slightly different in how they sound. And,
It matters how many clothes I have on the floor right now.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
That's hilarious.